Firstly, happy Wednesday, and I'm so sorry this episode is 2 days late. My life has been something else lately. So, over the weekend, I moved from Hanoi, which is in the north of Vietnam, to Hoi An, which is in the south. And a little life update. I'm now a bartender in Southeast Asia. So I took on this part-time volunteer job so I could stay in this hostel, which is so nice. It's like right between the beach, right between the old town. But I'm also still doing my full-time job. I'm kind of trying to save a little bit of money because my plan is to go to a few places later in the year that might be more expensive than the places I usually go to. So I'm saving money and I'm working so much. I've been kind of settling into this bartending job and then also doing my full-time job, but it's so exciting. I think it's such a cool life skill, something I've always wanted to do. That's my long-winded way of saying, I'm sorry this episode is late. Anyway, so last week we talked about how to get out of a rut, a lighter kind of rut, the meh days, when you're feeling a little bit low on energy, maybe you're not feeling as creative, or you really just need a reset. But today, I want to talk about a different kind of rut, the kind of that really sits heavier and it lasts longer and it makes you feel lost and lonely and out of place. Like you've drifted so far from yourself, you're not even sure how to get back. And I want to go deep with you on this. This isn't the episode where I tell you to drink more water or go for a run. I mean, we already did that in the previous one. This episode is about reaching for the root cause, not putting a plaster on it, but figuring out what's really happening underneath it all. So this episode is for you if you've been waking up with that ache that you just can't name, if you've been going through the motions but everything just feels flat, and maybe you're questioning who you are or what you're even doing with your life. Now, if you've been feeling lost, lonely, or disconnected from yourself, this is for you. Wherever you are in the world, wherever you're listening to this, maybe you're on a walk, maybe you're cooking yourself something nice or running errands, I want to invite you to take a deep breath and get honest with yourself. You deserve it. Come sit with me for a while. Welcome back to Lost and Found, the podcast where we're figuring things out in real time, together. I'm your host, Carmen Vit, and let's get straight into number one. So first thing you're going to do, you're going to conduct a life autopsy. Okay, the idea here is simple, but it's not easy. You're going to give yourself this time. You're going to go sit somewhere, book out a day, go sit in a cafe, maybe book out a workstation somewhere in a co-working space. Go to a park somewhere where you can focus. It's outside of your normal routines. And you know this is something that you're doing for you. You're blocking off this time. No distractions. Then what you're going to do, you're going to take a really good, honest look at your life and figure out where you are right now. Not where you think you should be. Not where it seems like other people your age are, but where you actually are right now. And how you got here. Because you can't get out of a rut if you don't know how you got there in the first place. So for this, also, I'm going to need you to get physical, meaning I don't want it to just be thoughts in your head, but actually think through this visually or verbally. So write it down in a notebook or on your computer. You can draw mind maps or record voice memos on your phone, however you choose. I just want there to be a physical manifestation of you figuring out your thoughts, of you thinking through this. And then I want you to ask yourself questions like this. It can be more, it can go wider, but start with these ones. This is the basics. So ask yourself, what in my life is making me happy right now? Then, what's stealing my joy? How did I get here? How's my health looking really? How's my social life? What is my relationship to love? What is my relationship with myself like right now? Do I feel fulfilled with work or school? What's my relationship with my family like? And then this one is maybe the biggest one, and we're going to continue talking about this. The question is, what are my values? And this includes figuring out what your idea of success looks like, what you believe success to be. Because a lot of us, I think, we're carrying around these inherited values. It's beliefs we picked up from parents or teachers, school systems, or maybe social media. And we pick them up and we carry them with us. And we live our lives according to these values, not because we deeply believe them, but because we've never stopped to question them. So maybe we think success means money and luxury, but success could also just be living a quiet life by the beach, or growing your own food, or raising a beautiful family, or traveling full time on a really low budget. Or maybe success for you is making space in your life for creative expression, or having enough time for your hobbies. But success for you could definitely also be building a business empire. It's all about choosing and knowing yourself. There's no wrong answer. The idea here is just to figure out whether this image of success that you have in your mind that you're chasing, is it actually yours? Is this what you value or what you were taught to value? And then when you figure that one out, you can choose for yourself. This is where the philosopher René Descartes comes in, and we've talked about him here on the podcast before. He's the guy who gave us cogito ergo sum, which is Latin for I think, therefore I am. And that's a whole other complicated philosophy. We're not going to go into that, but that's basically what he's famous for. Now, he had this method for getting to the truth. He believed that to live wisely, you first have to question absolutely everything you believe to be true. Yes, everything. That's really intense. So in his book, Meditations on First Philosophy, which came out, I think, 1641, if I'm not mistaken, so old book, he describes something that later got turned into this basket of apples metaphor. So imagine all your beliefs are apples in a basket. Some are fresh, some are good, but others are bruised and rotten. But you can't always tell at first glance which ones are good or bad. So if you try to just pick out the bad ones, you'll probably miss a few, and then they will spoil the rest. So instead, you have to tip out the entire apple basket onto the table. You examine each apple one by one, and only put back the ones you know are good. Descartes' point was that you have to do the same with your beliefs. You empty the whole damn basket. Everything you throw out, your assumptions about love, success, happiness, even who you think you are, and you inspect them during this life autopsy. You ask yourself, where did they come from? Do I actually believe this, or did I just inherit this belief from my parents or from school or from my culture? Which of these beliefs are nourishing me, and which of them are quietly poisoning me? And the goal isn't to burn your life down. It's just to get intentional so that you can rebuild on a foundation of what's actually true for you now. Because otherwise, you might be living a life guided by beliefs you didn't even choose. And another thing, while you're doing your life autopsy and you're thinking through success and what that looks like for you, something I specifically want you to do is map out your values. It's so easy for us to name our goals and map out our goals and have a little list of things we want to accomplish in the new year, but we rarely write down our values. So at this point, I think it would also be really helpful to bring in some of the ideas of this famous psychologist and Holocaust survivor, Viktor Frankl. And he taught that meaning comes from aligning with what you value and not just chasing these arbitrary achievements. Because it's easy to say, oh, my goal is to write a book, and when I achieve that, I will be happy. Or I want to run a marathon. But the question is, do you actually enjoy writing? Do you actually like running? Or are you just chasing the idea of this achievement because you think that's what you should be doing? Because somewhere along the way, you picked up the belief that that's what success or happiness looks like. Life isn't the moment you cross the finish line. It's the months of early morning runs. It's not just the moment that you're holding your published book in your hands. It's all the messy drafts and rewrites and days when the words won't come. So if you don't enjoy the process, you're not going to enjoy your life. So instead of just asking, what's my goal? I want you to ask, what feeling am I chasing through that goal? Because when it comes down to it, every single goal we want to achieve really is just a feeling we want to have. So, what is that feeling for you? Is it pride, freedom, connection, joy? And once you figure that out for yourself, I want you to ask, how can I have more of that feeling in my life right now, even in my current circumstances? Not someday, not when everything works out, but this week, today, because you can. So let's say one of your goals is to be rich. The surface level goal is money, right? But if you dig deeper, maybe what you really want is freedom. Freedom to wake up when you want to choose how you spend your day, to say yes or no without worrying about the bills. So, how can you create moments of freedom for yourself this week? Maybe you go for a long run in your lunch break. You shake up your usual routine and you take yourself somewhere unexpected after work, like a sunset spot you've never been to or a quiet park. The point is to start living the feeling right now and not put it off for someday. Because the more you align your days with what you value, the more your life will already feel like the one you're chasing. Let's take another example. So maybe your goal is to be famous. On the surface, that's about recognition, right? But when you strip it down, it's probably also about wanting to feel seen, valued, and appreciated for who you are and what you do. So, how can you start experiencing that right now without waiting for your big break? Maybe you could share your work with a small supportive group, like a writing circle or an open mic night or a community art page or something. Or you could start a small personal project online where you connect with people who genuinely resonate with what you're making. Or you could just tell someone close to you what you're doing and let them celebrate it with you. Because often I think what we're chasing in the big version of success already exists in smaller, purer doses all around us. And if you can learn to feel seen now, the journey to wherever you're going will feel far less empty and feel way more fulfilling because it's on the way to achieving the goal that your actual life is happening. We are always in the in between. So, how can you make the right now for yourself as beautiful as possible? Because that is quite literally the goal. Okay, so now we talked about life autopsies. You've already started the deep work. You're asking the right questions. You're pulling at the threads, and maybe you're finding things out about yourself that surprises you. Maybe some are beautiful, others are less comfortable. Because when you ask, how did I get here? And maybe here isn't exactly where you want to be, you're bound to bump into some truths that are hard to look at directly. But I don't think the point here is to get dejected. The point is to recognize that this uncomfortable self-revelation is one of the most empowering steps you can take because you're learning about yourself in a way that most people never do. You're being honest, and knowledge is power. Because once you see the truth, you can choose differently moving forward. So, number 2 is that when you're doing this deep inner work, you will inevitably come face to face with two things: your shadows and your grief. You're going to need to confront those shadows and that grief. So let's start with the grief. I think a lot of the time we end up in a deep rut and we end up feeling disconnected from ourselves because without fully realizing it, we are mourning. Not just people, but we're mourning chapters of our lives. So maybe you're going through a breakup, or you're mourning a version of yourself who existed before something changed. Maybe you've just finished university and you're floating in that strange gap between who you were as a student and who you're supposed to be now. Or maybe you're just stuck in a job that is slowly killing your creative spirit, or you're grieving a city you had to say goodbye to, or a friendship that faded, or a dream you had to put down. Ruts like that really come from a place of mourning. But then also there are the shadows. The famous psychologist Carl Jung described the shadows as the parts of ourselves that we try to keep hidden, the things we don't want to admit even to ourselves. And when you're in a rut, your shadow tends to get louder. It might say to you, you're lazy, you're jealous, or you're bitter, or you're afraid. And because those thoughts feel shameful, we push them away. But it's so important now to realize that the shadow side of you is rarely malicious. Often it's just trying to protect you. Laziness might be your body's way of saying, I'm exhausted, please stop. Or jealousy might be pointing you to something you deeply desire, but you've convinced yourself that you can't have. Or bitterness might be the armor you've built to stop yourself from getting hurt again. So instead of shutting the door on those negative shadow voices, I want to invite you to open it and ask these shadows, what are you trying to protect me from? What truth are you pointing to that I haven't been willing to see? And this is where you have to practice radical honesty with yourself. It can be life-changing. So start with one area of your life, your work, maybe your relationships or your health, and write down the full, unfiltered truth about that thing. Not the what I tell my friends and parents so they don't worry version. Write down the whole thing and then ask yourself, if I fully accept this truth, what one change would I have to make? And I think we do this a lot in relationships. We see the red flags. Sometimes they're screaming at us, but we weave these stories. We're so good at convincing ourselves that everything is fine, and we only tell the good stuff to our friends and to our parents. We kind of feel ashamed, maybe, for this other person's actions, or we want to protect them somehow. And so we also lie to ourselves, and we spin these stories, and we just procrastinate a decision that needs to be made. And you're keeping yourself in this space of hurt because you just don't want to accept the truth. So radical honesty is the most empowering thing you can do for yourself. Radical honesty about yourself and your own flaws and your shadow side. Because the moment you can see it, the moment you can admit what is going on, that's when you can make a change. It's like Alcoholics Anonymous, right? You have to first admit that you have a problem before you can even begin to better yourself. Now, this won't fix everything overnight. It's deep work, but you have to start. It will give you your footing back. And sometimes that's the first thing you need to climb out of a rut. Okay, number 3, do the things stealing your peace. Some things, I think, don't just sit in the back of our minds. They literally rot there. And that's the decisions you've been postponing because they feel too big or too scary or too final. But the longer you delay them, the more they siphon the life out of you. And this is, that job that's slowly been hollowing you out for years, but you just can't bring yourself to quit, or you can't bring yourself to start putting in new applications for other things. This is the breakup that deep down you know needs to happen. Or that first call to a therapist that you've been meaning to make, but you keep pushing it to next week. Or it's that boundary that you've been avoiding setting with a family member. So when we're in a rut, these unmade decisions become like emotional black holes because they keep you circling the same orbit, convincing yourself you're not ready yet, when in truth, the not acting is what's keeping you stuck. So here's your invitation. Name the one decision that's been weighing on you most. The one that, if you made it, would actually change the air you breathe. It would change your life. What is that one decision? I know you know what it is deep down. Think about it for a second. Then, and this is important, make a plan to actually follow through. You have to follow through. And I know you're walking your dog right now. You're in the gym or you're cooking pasta. And you're nodding your head and you're thinking, yeah, I really should do that. But deep down, you already know you're not going to do it. Because that's exactly how I was. When I was in relationships and I knew I had to break up, it would take me so long. I would know I have to break up with this person. People would tell me. I would tell myself. And I would say yes. I would nod my head. I would know it's the right thing. But then I'd keep procrastinating because I just couldn't deal with the hurt that I would cause. And it just stole so much of my life. I don't regret a lot of things in my life, but postponing breakups is definitely a big regret I have. So I know you're sitting there now and you're thinking, yeah, Carmen, you're right, but I'm not actually going to do it. Do it. Follow through. Because relief doesn't come from thinking about doing it. Relief comes from closing the loop, breaking the pattern, even when it's hard. Actually, especially when it's hard. Because the bravest thing you can do for yourself is stop living in the maybe and make a decision. This is your life. Okay. Number 4, this one is really powerful. I want you to sit across from yourself with help if you can. What do I mean by that? Basically, I'm telling you to go see a therapist. Go see a counselor, a psychologist, or get a mentor if that's possible for you. Someone trained to hold space for this tangled mess in your head that will not flinch or judge you. If you're feeling really down, if you're feeling like you are disconnected from life, from yourself, from joy, you have no idea the power of seeing someone who is professionally trained to hold space for you. There's a reason Freud called therapy the talking cure. There's something almost alchemical about speaking your truth out loud and then having it mirrored back to you in a way that makes you feel met. It's like finally coming face to face with yourself. But of course, I know therapy isn't always possible. Maybe it's like money or geography or timing. And if that's you, I want you to do your best to create your own version of sitting across from yourself. That could look like keeping a brutally honest journal, the raw kind, the one where you treat it like a conversation with your deepest, most unfiltered self. Or you can record voice memos where you speak your thoughts out loud and then you listen back as if you were hearing a friend speak. And this specifically for me has been so life-changing because you'll be shocked at the clarity that comes when you hear your own voice reflecting your reality back to you. Or you could find a trusted person who will listen without rushing to fix or judge or advise. The idea is to really see yourself and see what's going on in your own head, preferably through the lens of someone who's really trained to be there for you. So the point, I think, isn't necessarily to be heard, but to hear yourself. Because when everything stays swirling inside your head, it's like trying to see your reflection in the storm, and it's just so intimidating. What you need right now is a mirror, someone or something that reflects you back to yourself that you can finally see the whole picture. Okay, the next one, maybe it's gonna make your skin crawl, but I wanna tell you to take a substantial social media break. And now I'm not talking about just a weekend or I'll check it less, at least a month, maybe 2. So actually delete the apps from your phone and remove the temptation completely. And now I'm going to quote a few studies at you because I know you know that you need to do this, but you're still not doing it. First of all, it's shortening our attention spans, and you know this. So studies from the University of California, Irvine shows that once your attention span is broken, it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully refocus. 23 minutes. So if you're studying for 30 minutes and you take a quick scroll every half hour, you're never actually going to be fully focused, maybe only for 7 minutes at a time, because you're going to take 23 minutes to fully reset your focus. It really costs you more than you think. Another reason is that it creates the scenario where your brain is on a dopamine trip, because every like or comment or notification triggers the same reward pathways in your brain as gambling. So over time, you need more stimulation just to feel normal. And at first, this sounds like, okay, but what's the big deal? A little dopamine is not that bad. The problem is that that is when real life starts to feel dull. And it feels like everything that's exciting is on your screen. And you're just completely pulled out of society, out of your body, out of the beautiful sensation that is being alive. You see what I mean? And then, of course, you know, this one, social media just means that you're comparing yourself into paralysis. So researchers from Harvard found that upward social comparisons, so that means you're looking at people who are doing better than you, they're directly linked to lower self-esteem, higher anxiety, decreased life satisfaction. And the problem is that social media is engineered to feed you those comparisons on repeat. And I think a lot of the times we're in this rut and we just don't feel good and we don't know why. Because everything in our life is going great. But all you can manage to do is rot in your bed and scroll on social media. And now I'm going to ask you, why do you think you're not feeling great? Because you're not actually living life. You are watching other people live their lives, and that's making you feel like shit. The next one naturally follows from everything we just talked about. Your mood will improve without it. So, a 2020 study in the Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology found that reducing social media use to just 30 minutes a day for 3 weeks led to significant drops in loneliness and depression amongst the people that they were doing the study on. So, if that is what can happen if you reduce your use to 30 minutes a day, imagine what 0 minutes for a month could do. And if you still want to go back after a month, great, that's on you. I'm not saying you have to quit cold turkey. I just want you to experiment. Give yourself that month. Because you might think you're just passively consuming content, but also you're actually shaping your worldview and your sense of self and your belief about what's possible based on a highlight reel of other people's lives. You're just consuming, you're not creating, you're allowing an algorithm to shape your perspective. And when you step away for a month, you really give your brain a chance to recalibrate because you stop living in comparison and you start living in observation. And then you notice your life again and your attention span recovers, your focus gets better, your thoughts stop looping around the drama of other people, and you reclaim the mental space that you didn't even know you rented out in the first place. But I think the most important thing out of all of this is that once you let go of all that noise, once you step out of it, the real you will be easier to find because you're taking away all those other distractions. And then talking about the real you that is needing to be found, number 6, I think. Or are we at 7? I think we're at 6. I want you to get to know yourself from scratch. And how do you do this? I really do want to implore you to take a solo trip, even if it's just for a weekend. I will say this till the day that I'm in the old age home. Solo traveling has changed my life, and it has completely changed my relationship with myself. And I want every single person to do this for themselves. It is a gift that you give yourself for the rest of your life. Because when you strip away your routines or your roles or your usual friendships and surroundings, something strange and really beautiful happens. You meet yourself again. You meet yourself. And a solo trip doesn't have to mean that you quit your job and you just go backpacking through Asia for a year. But I do want to say the bigger the better, so go for it if you can. But it could also just be a weekend in a nearby city or a night in a cabin, a train ride to somewhere you've never been before. The point isn't where you go. It's that you go alone. Because solitude in a strange place acts like a mirror. Without the familiar noise of people who know your history, you see who you are in real time, right now, not the person you've been performing as. And that performance happens without you even realizing. So you get to step into this braver, newer version of yourself in areas and spaces where people don't know you. There aren't any expectations on you. And then also, when you're solo traveling, you make every decision. What to eat, where to go, when to rest. And that's how you start really hearing your own preferences again. You start getting to know yourself because you start to learn what you like doing in your free time, what you want to do, not with someone else who's dictating the itinerary. But what do you want to do? So you discover the parts of you that get buried under other people's expectations. But also, and this is the beautiful, empowering part, you realize you're far more capable than you give yourself credit for. Because you can navigate train stations in another language and you can eat alone without feeling awkward. You can strike up a conversation with strangers. And you realize that, wow, I got me. I got my back. Even when stuff goes horribly wrong and I'm by myself, I will figure it out. And this is exactly what my book is about. So my book is called Untethered, A Beginner's Guide to Solo Travel. It's available on Amazon Kindle, or you can buy it as a PDF on my website. So I'll link that in the show notes below. And I also have a whole chapter that really goes into depth on why you should solo travel and the benefits of that. Okay, the next one. Oh, this is so practical and it is so powerful. I want you to volunteer for something bigger than you. Because when you're in a rut, your whole world can shrink until it feels like it's just you, your problems, and the loop of your thoughts that you just can't seem to escape. But volunteering for a cause actually forces your world to expand again. So pour yourself into a cause that you really care about. Maybe that's teaching kids to read, or you're walking shelter dogs, or serving meals, cleaning up a beach, planting trees, whatever it is that you care about. Just the act of showing up for someone or something else really pulls you out of your own head and anchors you in meaning. The difference you can make is already possible now. You matter now, and so does the contribution you make. Nietzsche said this beautiful thing once. He said, "The person who has a why to live can bear almost any how." So I want you to find that why. When you're stuck, you need a why that is bigger than your own comfort, something worth enduring the discomfort for. And it doesn't have to be some grand lifelong cause. It can literally just be 2 hours a week where you tutor math at a local kindergarten. Something that reminds you that life is about more than just your problems, that there are other people out there who might even have it worse. Because the beautiful thing about volunteering is that it's as much for you as for them. It strengthens your empathy, it shifts your perspective, and it gives you proof that your life and your time have value right now, not just as some vague future milestone, but you can make a difference while you're in the mess of it. And that's a beautiful thing. So if you're feeling stuck, find something worth serving and then serve it with your whole heart. You might just find that while you were trying to help someone else, you ended up saving yourself. And you'll feel proud of yourself. You'll feel like you made a meaningful contribution to something that matters. And that already is a step in the right direction. Okay, the next one. Haha. I don't know how you guys are going to feel about this, but this has been big for me. Okay, number 8. Decenter romantic relationships. For a while, at least. And I know love is intoxicating. It's amazing, that thrill of a new attraction, or the comfort of long-term connection, or that rush of someone seeing you as special. I get it. It's fun. Trust me. I, of all people, get it. But it's also one of the most emotionally and energetically expensive things we can give ourselves to. Because we pour hours and mental bandwidth and just scores and scores of emotional reserves into navigating breakups and heartbreaks, or reading between the lines of text, or trying to ride these high-low cycles of, do they like me as much as I like them? Or we're bending ourselves backwards to fit this image of what we think this person wants, or how can we get them to stay? And it's exhausting, honestly. Just think of all the emotional energy that goes into that. And it's not that love or relationships are bad, not at all. It's just that when you're in this rut, when you're in this place of feeling disconnected and you're not feeling fulfilled with your life and you're in the process of rebuilding yourself, I think it is easy for love to then become a distraction from the deeper work. And it's easy to feel like, well, if I'm in love, I won't feel these bad feelings anymore and somebody else might come to save me. So it's really tempting to let a relationship, or maybe the pursuit of one, act like almost scaffolding that props you up so that you don't have to face your own emptiness. But imagine, just for a season, just for a few months, taking all that energy and time and focus that you give to romance and redirecting it towards yourself. That project that you've been too busy to start, the trip that you've been wanting to take, the friendships that have sustained you through the worst parts of your life that you are not giving attention to, your own creativity, your health, your sense of self-worth, all of that, that deserves your attention too. So by decentering romantic relationships, it's not that you're swearing off love forever. It's just that you're giving yourself a sacred period to remember who you are without the mirror of someone else's gaze. You're proving to yourself that your life can be rich and full and meaningful without being tethered to romantic validation. And then when you do return to love, you'll be meeting it from a place of wholeness and not from hunger or lack or emptiness. And you'll be a better person to be in a relationship with. And you will attract better in turn. Okay, second to last one. Start a passion project, something that is just for you. When we're lost, it's easy to make our lives entirely about obligations and then escape. So we're all work deadlines, bills, errands, this endless list of shoulds. And then after that, it's all about empty escape, binge watching or scrolling. But I think a little passion project can be an amazing antidote and a good in-between. And the key here is that it's not about monetizing or optimizing or proving anything to anyone. It's just about making something for no other reason than that it lights you up and it gives you joy. And that could be writing the first chapter of a book that you've been carrying in your head, or painting every Sunday morning, or learning to DJ, or knit or garden, or something that you've wanted to do for a while now. Or maybe it's starting a podcast. The point isn't to be good at it. In fact, I think the less pressure you put on yourself to be impressive, the better. This is just about reclaiming play, the pure, intrinsic joy of doing something because you love doing it, not for the outcome. And in psychology, this is called flow, that state where you lose track of time and your inner critic dies down and you're fully absorbed in the present moment. And flow is one of the fastest ways to pull yourself out of a rut because it gives you direct access to the part of yourself that feels most alive. And if you don't know where to start, ask yourself, what's one thing I would still do if no one ever saw it? So if you never got paid for it, if you never got recognition, nobody saw it, what is that one thing that you would still keep doing? And then make time for it. Even if it's just an hour a week. This is the space where you remember that your worth isn't tied to productivity or performance. You get to be a whole person simply because you exist. And passion projects are your proof. We are not here to be optimized money-making machines for a capitalist system. We are quite literally just passing time until we die. So the point is to make as much meaning and joy in the interim as possible. And that leads me to my final point, which is, I've kind of gotten ahead of myself. The final point is, remember, life is just passing time, so make it count. And I know that sounds brutally honest. It sounds kind of depressing, but it isn't. It's not meant to be depressing, it's liberating. It means that meaning isn't handed to you. You make the meaning, you get to choose, you get to experiment. Take the risks that you've always wanted to, like dye your hair red, or move to a new city where no one knows you, or change careers at 40 or start over after a breakup. You get to be unapologetically whoever you want to be, and the only real tragedy is never giving yourself permission to try. And I think the best way I know how to frame this is that you are your own responsibility, and you are responsible for your own joy. We've talked about this on the podcast many times before. So I want you to really take care of yourself like you would take care of your own child. Now think about that. How would you take care of your own child? You would be compassionate, right? You would be gentle when they were hurting, patient when they were learning, but you would also be firm when it mattered. So you would set boundaries and you would encourage them to push past fear. Make sure they ate their vegetables and went outside and did the hard things. And that's exactly how you have to treat yourself. Not with constant indulgence, but also not with constant criticism, but with love that is active. Love that says, I want the best for you, so I will hold you accountable to living a life that you will not regret. Because if all this is borrowed time, the point isn't to get to the end safely. It's to get there having lived so fully that your life couldn't possibly have been mistaken for anyone else's. Okay, wow. I loved having this conversation with you. Thank you for joining me today. And before we go, I want you to know this. Feeling lost does not mean that you failed. It just means that you're in a season of shedding, of recalibration, of choosing again. And these periods aren't detours, they're part of the path. The people you admire most, the ones living the lives that you would love to wake up to, they're human too. They've all been here as well. No one comes to save you in these moments, and that's the gift. Because it means that you get to save yourself in whatever strange or brave or messy way that you can. Okay, now the trick is not to just smile and close the podcast app and think like, oh, that was such a nice episode. The trick here is to actually do the things that we were talking about. So try one of them today or this week or more, but do it as soon as you can. The shift doesn't come from knowing all the answers. It comes from making those small, consistent moves towards yourself. And remember, I'm going to say this again, you are your responsibility. Treat yourself like someone you love, because you're the only one who's going to stick around for your whole life. And if this episode spoke to you, please leave me a rating and a review. It really helps the podcast reach the people who need to hear it most. And share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you try any of these things, and if you have feedback on them, I would love to hear from you. Send me a message, send me a DM, leave it in the Spotify comments or a review, and tell me what you discovered. I read every single one of your messages, and I really appreciate them. Also, as always, remember to get a little lost this week. That's where the magic finds you. Until next time.